So, but my first question actually is going to you. What is good sex?
No sex.
So one person said, good sex is no sex. Thank you. One person said, Leichtigkeit, lightness. Abenteuer, adventure. Thank you. And be mindful about how your perception or your idea of sex might change or still stays the same during the interview. Who knows? Be curious. So my first question actually goes to Didi. So Didi, what did your mother say when you changed your day job to a sex-based bodywork?
You're starting with very personal questions, don't you?
I do.
Well, to be honest, for those who don't know me, I'm from Switzerland. I used to have a very proper Swiss profession. I was chief financial officer in a software company, and my mother was proud of me because she could tell her friends, that's my son, he's doing that and that job, and everything was good. So when she first heard it, her reaction wasn't so thrilled about it, but ever since then she supported me in a great way, and she opened up to that, but she still has issues explaining what I'm really doing when she meets other family members. So, and I don't think she really wants to picture her son in close up what my work really is. So she's open to that, but not too much.
So yeah, let's see how this might change also when she watches this interview. So maybe she gets a complete new picture of you. But with so much information and so many products on the market, is there still anything for us to discover when it comes to sex? Something that we don't know about? Or another question is, why would I frequent a sexological bodyworker?
Well, the big question for me there is, where do people learn sexuality? And I think when it comes to that, we're not really good at that. So we're good at kind of selling products with it, consuming it, but really learning it, I think it's hard to find a place where you can do that. And I also work in sexual education with kids who grow up, and I'm not really sure about Germany, but if I look at the sexual education in Switzerland, there's basically none, or very little. And the main focus is, don't get pregnant, and don't get any disease, and that's basically it. And really learning, or kind of that people can grow up as kids and in their youth when they first encounter sexuality, it's still hard to find your way around what is good sex for you. I think if we ask the people here, it's different for everybody, and it will change over lifespan, and to have the freedom in there, I think that is still lacking, and that's what we're offering.
Offering some more or broadened idea of sexuality, which might bring more freedom, is that what you're saying?
Well, part of it is like giving knowledge around sexuality, which is a topic, but the basic or the core of it is the learning through the body, really experiencing it. And if I have to describe that, I would say we open a space where people can explore themselves, and we don't have any boundaries in that sense. We touch genitals, we touch assholes, and that's totally okay, that's totally normal. And I think most of the people doing the training right now, they did today Orgasmic Yoga witnessing. It's one of the most challenging exercises. You have somebody next to you while you're masturbating. And that's not the usual way we do that.
So how would you use, how did you call it, orgasmic yoga witnessing? No, I actually know what it is, but so how would you use this, or again, what are questions people are coming with?
Well, there are many questions, but the basic question underneath is really, am I normal with the sex as I am? And I think we can show them through the body experience, everything is normal, but if you want to learn something different, something new, you can do that. And the best place to start is with yourself. But then again, that's the hardest step to take for many people.
Thank you so far. Joseph.
Hello, everyone.
So you're a sex education trailblazer.
That's me.
What is it that you really like to teach people? What is it that people can profit from?
So I would like to start. It makes me nervous. I'm nervous. If we would breathe my favorite breath together. I'd like to teach you my favorite breath. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And then it'll make me feel comfortable. It's just a sigh. So it's what we were doing earlier. It's but there's one more part. At the end of the sigh, be available for a chuckle or a laugh. Don't make it happen, but see what happens at the end of the sigh. So let's do one. Two more times, please. I'll feel better. Isn't it a good breath? It's really, it just falls out. Now, what was the question? What was?
Well, I'd really like to know what you like to teach people. What is it that people can learn?
So I think most people know what they want to learn. They do. And I see myself as a coach, like a yoga coach, but I see sex as like yoga, that we have to practice it. So I guide people in practicing, so they learn. So I'm a erotic yoga coach. That's what I think. And this is how humans learn sex. We learn sex by doing it. And most sex education is talk, talk, talk. And actually a lot in the schools is about disease, beware, scary things. But I think we just have to practice. So sexological bodywork is a practice-based profession. And actually a lot of people have trouble practicing even sex, meditation or yoga or running or whatever. So it's encouraging people to practice. And there's specific things to practice. If somebody wants to learn, somebody might need to just relax during sex. So breathing, knowing just how to relax during breathing. Other people, there's all kinds of lessons that you can learn through practice. So I'd say there's no one thing, but it's just helping people to practice and encouraging people to practice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Didi. Yeah, we're going a little deeper, I feel. So, and that's also an aim of sexological bodywork. We're not staying on the surface, it's on really personal issues, and that's also what you get to know here. I'm trying to get them somewhere.
I start sweating.
You start sweating, thank you for sharing. Maybe you can stay with that, that's fine. But I was wondering, is there a way to sustain a long-lasting partnership and still have a juicy sex life?
Well, that's basically the holy grail of couple therapy, and if I had the answer, I probably would be a rich and wealthy man. But it's probably not the answer you're looking for. No. No, there's no... I think we live in a society where people like to have quick solutions, and what we offer is not a quick solution. But we can use an intimate relationship to really make growth happen within that relationship, and people helping each other, changing their habits, changing sexuality. And I think the approach we have with sexology bodywork is so interesting because we don't focus on what is not working, we focus on what's working best. And we have something which is called the core erotic theme. So what is really thriving your arousal and your sex drive? And the first answer to that is most of the core erotic themes are not built around long-lasting relationships. It is often around excitement. And if you know somebody for 30 years, it could be that that excitement goes down. But there's waiting a lot of stuff to explore and try out, which goes beyond that. So you can change that, you can work with that. And if you're aware of it, I think you can have a long-lasting relationship with an exciting sex life. I would say not exciting, a relaxing sex life.
So there is a difference, obviously, between the excitement in the beginning of a partnership, and then it turns into something else. Is that right? Into something that's more relaxing, maybe.
And that's true. But I think what we see in working with couples, and that's known around couple therapy, when two people meet and find together, and they bond in an intimate relationship, it's not like the idea is we come together and we learn together and then there is change, but often we come together and we meet at a certain place where we feel comfortable with our sex life. But that's not where the excitement is. Where the excitement is, I have to risk something. And so people stay in that spot and there's not really a change. And that, I think, is the core issue, why there's no automatic change within a relationship.
What I know from my practice is that communication is also a core tool that we use also in our sessions to give people or to train people in. So some people are approaching me and saying, but with all the communication, isn't that killing the magic of sex? How would you answer that?
Well, the way people perceive sex is, there are many ways, but I think this idea of sex as something magic, yes, sex is magic. Sex is magic when people truly encounter each other, first myself, but also each other. Then for me it's magic. But often when we have this, I mean, the idea of magic sex often comes from the head, and it's not what's really happening between two people. And then it becomes something which I can't reach. You know, this idea, we come together and then it's just bliss, and it's not how sex works. And we know that reality is different, but often we hold on to that idea of the magic sex. And if we take that magic sex down from up there to reality, it might turn into something magic.
So the common idea of magical sex as being something natural, or something that happens naturally, is something that one could question. So that leads me actually again to another question that I have for you.
Comment on this.
Yeah, please comment.
So I think our first coming together with people, there's sparks, and there's interest and there's excitement. And we call it hot sex. Oh, she's hot, he's hot, they're hot. But to go on for years and years, I think we should seek warm sex, not expect hot sex. And it has to do with sensuality. If we're relating to our partner's if we're talking about a partner, a long-term partner, if we're relating to our partner's physical self, that involves a lot of, like, touch. So sometimes when the sex stops, touch stops, and you're not relating to your partner's being. Oh, I love this person. We've been together 10 years, but I haven't touched them in 5 years. So I think warm sex is staying connected and growing old together. And not expecting hot sex, but really expecting warm sex and a wonderful, and not just communication, I mean fun, that foot massage, or the shoulder massage, or the genital massage. So warm sex, I think, is a good expectation, but we expect some magic to continue forever,
Yeah.
I also I'm not a fan of the cultural image of 30-year relationships. I think if it works, but I don't think it's the norm. We know that.
What other ideas or messages that we learn when we're brought up, or something that society teaches us, what other toxic informations have to be debunked?
So did you hear that question? We've all heard the same things. What are toxic messages? Are messages that don't serve us about sex? Maybe 3 people. Is there some message that you got in the last 10 years that just hasn't served you about what? In schools, I know a lot of sex is hooked up with beware of disease, and I was in San Francisco in the 80s when AIDS was just huge. So fear and sex were, woven together. And I think there's still some of that. Are there other messages?
You should only have sex with someone you're in a relationship in, and that relationship should be a long-term relationship.
And there's another part, and it should be one man and one woman. That's one of the big messages that comes especially from religion. One more. And you must have heard message. Are you here to be reprogrammed? No, you must have heard some messages. Yes.
It's better to have sex after your marriage, so you're not allowed to have it before.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if this is I don't know if this is toxic, but how about I think you might have said it already, Sky, a version of it, but sex is better with love. Well, I think there's sex with love and there's sex without love. Both. I don't know. Some on Tuesdays I like sex without love. On Thursdays I have my loves.
I find it interesting that no one yet mentioned porn, which mostly carries also a lot of shame. It's a shameful issue, but not for all of us. So porn seems to be pretty attractive these days. So is watching porn a bad thing?
So this is a loaded question. I think porn is the biggest influence on sex in the Western world right now. And it's going to, I don't know what's next, but certainly for the next 25 or 30 years. So young kids, adults, older people, there's a great influence. And as a sex educator, I go, wow. And as from the sexological bodywork tradition, we have a huge approach. We call it porn yoga. And I'll give a little introduction, but on October 6th, I'm doing a presentation here for free on porn yoga, on our approach to sex, with videos of people practicing porn yoga, men and women, and in between, all genders. But basically, I think I don't get into culture wars about addiction and all this. For sexological body workers, the problem is that people watching porn often forget our bodies. Our attention is in the porn. And even during orgasms or ejaculations, our attention is elsewhere and something major is happening in our own body. And often there's not much movement. So we're forgetting our bodies, but people are sitting or lying down. And, you know, the excitement comes, and it's an amazing cultural evolution. So the first thing is, how can we be more embodied? And that's what porn yoga is about. It's about how to enjoy porn while really being in our body, moving. And there's probably about 25 core yoga asanas. And I'll explain a lot of them next week on the 6th. But the two I'd like to mention tonight are stand up when you watch porn. People with vulvas and people with penises. A lot of people are sitting at their desks, like here, watching internet porn. And people with penises and vulvas or vibrators, what a great position to have an orgasm in, sitting here. This really carries over to sex in other realms. I remember the first time I sat at my computer at a desk to try watching porn and masturbating. And I masturbated and go, this is never going to catch on. This is such a horrible position. And yet this is one of the major positions people have sex in, is like this. So stand up and move. Watch, elevate the screen. And in terms of porn yoga, that's all you need to learn. It automatically changes how your body is and how you interact and move. There's such a stationariness to this. The other suggestion I'll just put out about porn is, when it comes to the big bang, to orgasms, whether it's multiple orgasms in people with vulvas or people with penises and ejaculation, this is such an amazing experience that it benefits one to bring one's attention back to the body more. And when I thought this up, I thought there was going to be rebellion. Everyone that I've coached, everyone out of several hundred people, has gone, wow, when I bring my attention back, there's really quite amazing things happening. I built up a charge, but I'm feeling my own orgasm. So the sexological, the bodywork approach is to be in our bodies when we have sex, and we help people to be in their bodies even when they're watching porn. So in porn yoga, I never ask what people watch. I'm coaching people, never ask what they watch. Who cares? But what porn is something that arouses us. And then the question is, what do we do with that arousal? How do we play with it? How do we move it through our body? How do we have fun with it? The most fun with it. And what an amazing thing. And it's not just generic porn. We get to choose what really excites us. So there's a lot of excitement that then we can play with. So I think it's a wonderful technological advance that we can use. And I use this in sex education. People can then take it into their body, that arousal, and learn some things about arousal in their body and let go of the porn. And that can carry over into all kinds of sexual play. So they learn to regulate eroticism in their body using porn, but not learn by watching what's going on in the porn. They just use that as the excitement and then learn. So that's...
Thank you.
Let's take another deep breath.
I was just wanting to ask for that. So I ask you to take a deep breath and snap on the top. This is a wonderful way to bring back our attention. So thank you for that. And that leads me again to a question to you. So now we heard how Joseph approaches porn addiction or people that are
Not
watching
addiction.
porn?
No.
It's a little bit over there.
Okay.
You're right. I didn't say porn addiction, but you talked about people that are
who
watching
love
porn.
People who love porn.
Anyway.
That's right.
People who
Porn-loving people.
That's right.
Good. So I'm curious about how you work with people who approach you with questions about erection, questions about arousal, questions about orgasm. So this is more of a practical question, because I know that you probably like to hear about, like, okay, now we've heard something, let's get dirty. How do you work with it?
It's actually quite a big area, all these topics, but the underneath question to that is, for me, really, how well did the people learn to regulate their eroticism, their sexuality? No matter if it's about erection, no matter if it's about orgasm, no matter how long should I last till I come to orgasm. There are many ideas around there which are not the reality. So people have the fantasy that is like the reality, and then they come and they just lay out and tell them, okay, that's how it is, and where do you want to go from there? For example, if you have a man who says, I come always after 1 minute. Is that fast or slow? What would you say? Why?
Because it's too short for the woman.
Okay, so yeah. So let's take a heterosexual couples. Would be 20 years long relationship. Would the woman be satisfied if the man always comes after 1 minute? Why not? There might be women who also come after 1 minute and they happily lived ever after. But if we take statistics, we know usually women need longer, and if they don't want to be short on their orgasm, it's good if the man learns to regulate themselves and to regulate the energy. And it's maybe also good for him, because it's quite great having that energy for longer than 1 minute. But it's not me who decides that's a problem. So it's really up to the person, what do I want to learn? And most of us never learned about regulating our sexual energy. And we can offer tools and ways to do that. That's the first step. It's like this regulation of the energy. But the other step is also, and that's I learned during my practice, changing that is basically quite easy. So I had men, they come, you change that. I remember one man, he came back next session, I had now 45 minutes sex with my wife without coming. What happened?
He learned to regulate, maybe. He learned to regulate.
He learned to regulate, but what happened in the relationship? So you had a man always coming after 1 minute, and then he comes back 45 minutes. Was the woman going like, yeah, great?
Yes! Irritation.
Irritation, exactly. Why? Shouldn't she be happy?
More lubrication.
More lubrication?
Well, probably she thinks that's her fault because, you know, he no longer likes what he gets, and so it takes him forever, or whatever, like that.
So who was sending him to me? Was it himself or her? It was her. So the dynamic in the relationship was you having the problem, and you had that for 20 years, and everything you did never worked. And that balanced itself wonderfully. And suddenly he comes back, that has changed, but the relationship wasn't ready for that change. So I think that's the next step we're working on, is also how is this affecting my life, my relationships? Because especially in couples dynamics, often that works in this way, and if you change one person in that, it will affect the other person. And not everybody is happy and is welcoming that change.
Okay. Yeah, that's also what I realized during the sessions that I give, is that you can change one thing on a physical body level, but that doesn't affect all the other levels that our work approaches. Thank you. So now I have a little different question for you.
I've studied.
Wonderful. I hope that'll help you. So, where's the question? Oh, yeah, this is a different realm. So how about sexological bodywork being inclusive, also in terms of marginalized people, such as trans people? How does sexological bodywork embrace variety?
So sexological bodywork came out of my experience of meeting a lot of people who really like sex, and I would say were erotically gifted. So people don't usually say, oh, she's erotically gifted or they're erotically gifted, but there are people who just they exude it, sex, and they're great. And as a teacher, I'd say a lot of these people have a gift to teach. So, and one of the professions that was open to such people is sex work, being a prostitute. So I knew lots of people who went into prostitution because they like sex and they had something to offer, and they knew this. And so they were doing great work. And I actually believe that much of what we do as sexological body workers, there's a whole group or a percentage of sex workers that are doing the same thing. That's why they chose to be sex workers. They're educators. They're giving advice on how to prolong from 1 minute to 45 minutes. So anyway, so the people who influenced me the most were, at the beginning, were sex workers and a lot of radical queers. And so in being inclusive, when the profession started, probably 1/3 of the people were sex workers. I used to say, are you trying to upgrade your status? But not upgrading, there was no other place. They didn't want to be a regular sex therapist or a psychotherapist. But we work directly with the body. We touch people. We educate by showing, it's about practice, but showing people pleasure in different states. So, but as this has come along, because it's kind of a fringe profession, it is, especially in the United States, a lot of fringe people feel at home here. So, lots of trans people. When I first started out in the training around the world, we had a whole section in working with vulvas, and then there was another time working with penises. Well, in many trainings that I offer, we go, let's get rid of this. Working with genitals, caressing genitals, and so it's all mixed together. And right now I'm editing, I'm a video person also, I'm editing 2 different great trans videos getting sexological bodywork. I don't have enough of that. So I think sex is, this is kind of an umbrella, and lots of people who are, I don't think it's inclusive of just trans people or queer people, but people who are erotically gifted and really want to be of service in terms of sex, helping other people in some way, show up. So yeah, all those people are welcome.
Yeah, I think for me it's especially the idea of really embracing everything everything that a human being can be. It's more of opening up ideas of sexuality and ideas also of gender. That is something that makes sexological bodywork special to me personally. But you already mentioned sex work. So where in relation to sex work do you see sexological bodywork?
Well, for 25 years, I've been making sex education videos also with my partner, Carol Lee. And Carol Lee invented the word sex work, so that's she's known for. And she's a sex work activist. So every day not every day, but at least twice a week I work with her, we edit together. And so I'm really involved with sex work. And she is the one that said, California needs, this is the way to change the laws in the United States. How about something that starts with touch, trying to get that legal? And so we pushed through sexological bodywork. So it was really a lot of influence by sex workers. And sex work is whatever you want to, it's a big umbrella and you can define it in many ways. So I'm okay with saying we're a form of sex work, we do sex work. If that's what you meant.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yes, I remember our talk that we had yesterday. Do you also have your 5 cents on the relationship between sexological bodywork and sex work? Is there anything you would like to add?
I think most people who go classically into sex work, they go for pleasure and having a good time. And the people coming to us, they have interesting to learn something, and I think that's a small difference. And sex work can be a learning space as well. But our focus is on that. And I think one thing I noticed is we're always talking about sex here, and it gives the impression it's all about sex. And I think sexology bodywork is much more than that. It's really a tool of personal growth, I would say, because sex affects a lot of different areas in our life. And it's not only about sex down here, it's a lot about the heart, it's a lot about love yourself, love other people. I heard the word kindness today, so that people become kinder people, connecting in a deeper way with themselves and others. So I think I would take that away from just sex work. For me, it's like a bigger picture. Okay,
thank you so far. We're having a break of how many minutes?
No, this is not the break.
Oh, this is not the break.
First, I would like to ask you, how does a sexological bodywork session look like? What happens there? Only for having an idea.
So I think that depends a bit on the schools. We kind of developed our own style. So our classical sessions, and a lot of people in Germany also took that, because we work with talk and body work, and we realized having 1 hour or 90 minutes, it's not enough time. So the standard session, it's 3 hours. It's around 50-50 talk and body work. And so you have enough time to talk with that person, what they're really looking for, and going deeper in the talk, and then finding out what they want to learn. And around that, you build the structure of the body work. You do the body work, and after that you have a reflection on what you did in the session. And that's like the start. And the idea is that you take a series of sessions every 3 to 4 weeks. And within the sessions you're having homework assignments where you practice stuff you want to practice, because it's about integrating in your daily life. Because you see that here, I mean, it's easy we have a 2-week workshop here. People will make all kinds of great epiphanies and experiences. But it's hard to transfer that into daily life. And I think that's the idea, that people come to a session, they go back and practice that in the daily life, with themselves, with their partners, and see if that works for them. And so that goes on until the person says, okay, I learned what I wanted to learn.
My ideal social context my ideal context is a social context. So I like having groups that go on. So Thursday night group that lasts for 3 months, and people come and work together in a group instead of one-on-one with me. I've done 15,000 one-on-one sessions, and I think it's way better. There's much more learning in a group context where people get to know each other and do exercises and practices together during the week, try out all kinds of things and come back. And some are, like in the States, I've only done this once, but men's group, who, heterosexual mostly, men's group, who don't want to do any exercises together but want to learn. So they talk and then go do their practices and come back and talk. But the social is very important. So there's all kinds of contexts, but I like the ongoing group that learns together.
So now we still have got some time for questions coming from your side. So may I translate? So he and a couple of other friends are dealing with yoga. They're doing yoga and they're talking and doing things around sex. So if I get that right, there is a side of you that is wondering if, like, the spiritual side of yoga isn't supposed to be also part of sexuality. For example, not ejaculation, not ejaculating.
Yeah, like harnessing energy, making it.
What energy?
Harnessing.
Harnessing energy. Okay.
Or like placing sex into like a service of like a spiritual path, you know, like tantric practices. And like these two sides are always in conflict at the moment. And I ask myself what you would recommend, like a person like me, my friends, who are struggling between these two poles. Or also some comments on maybe how to find the balance in between these two opposite.
I will just repeat it for us having it on tape. This is a question on recommendations on combining or putting spirituality into sex.
So I'm 70 years old, and when I was 30, I became a Taoist. I learned all the acupressure points on my body. I taught Taoism. I practiced ejaculation, retention. 20 years ago, I decided to let go of formal structures. But I did have a full year of no ejaculation whatsoever when I was practicing. And I didn't feel a benefit from that practice. I did it for a year.
You didn't?
I did. No ejaculation for a year. 1988, I remember. No ejaculation. And Taoists say as you get older, at 70 I should ejaculate like 10 times a year only. I like ejaculation. And what Taoism taught me is choice. I think as a human being, I like having choice, but my spirit... But I personally don't recognize ejaculation or not ejaculation as central to my spiritual practice. For me, what has been spiritual, I would say, is awe. A-W-E, awe. Awe is and wonder and amazement at human beings and flesh and arousal and the universe. So that is my spirituality, my personal spirituality, is one of awe. I'm just in awe of right here. So I don't think I can be helpful about a specific practices. I think you try a practice and see if it works for you or doesn't. I have found that erotic practices are beneficial for me. So I call this Orgasmic Yoga. I created a whole website that is just about orgasmic practices, orgasmicyoga.com. I invite you, by the way, to go to orgasmicyoga.com. It's a membership, but on the front page is something about porn yoga, and there's a free video about porn yoga practices, showing a little bit 2 minutes of what I'll be doing on the 8th, but it shows people doing the practices, including this person here. But spirituality for me is a way of valuing. And it's not inherent in ejaculating or not ejaculating, but it's what I value is a spiritual, it's how I define my spirituality. And so in sexological bodywork, we try not to speak too much about spirituality. Unlike Tantra traditions, where it is all about a spiritual tradition, or yoga traditions. So I can't help you with your answer, except that.
Are there other questions?
So.
Ja, was passiert bei der Ausbildung als Sexological Bodyworker? What happens during the training as Sexological Bodyworker?
Mm-hmm.
You have an expert.
Okay, so tonight I'm your expert for sexological bodywork training, and it's different wherever you do it. You can do it in Switzerland, in Berlin, in Prague, in London, in Melbourne, in California. I don't know, probably in other places too.
Brazil, Australia,
yeah, true.
Canada.
So all of them are slightly different. And the idea is to have an online training where there are different tasks that you have to fulfill, or with a lot of reading, a lot of teaching, online teaching on videos, and then there are some questions, and with those questions you go into sessions. So you start from the first day on giving sessions and learning, and that's about a period of 10 weeks.
2 or 3 months.
Yeah. So and afterwards there are on-site trainings, which is like hands-on training. You meet with your group, with the other colleagues, and sometimes in Berlin it's 2 weeks in a row. In Switzerland they offer it 1 week, and then there's another online training, and then you come back for a week of on-site training. Or there is a year-long training, so there are different modalities. But in general, that's mainly it. And afterwards, after 2 weeks of hands-on training and online training, there is you can be certified if you are, well, and that is different from school to school, but you have to at least do 25 pleasure points.
50.
Or 50. Is it 50 in general?
No. 50 sessions.
Here in Berlin it's 50, in Switzerland it's 50 also, so you have to, for example, give 50 sessions and take down notes and send us a report, and we will coach you through the whole process. Does that give you an idea?
Thank you.
Yes.
about structure and about the content, so maybe that I have an idea about the main contents.
The website sexologicalbodywork.com has all the classes, but it describes each class in detail. And it's lots. So there's solo work. You work with yourself and learn regulation. There's ways to touch others. There's ways to teach couples. There's teaching people to place their attention. This is huge because we choose where we choose to place our attention is our basic freedom. And if we choose to place in different ways that we're touched or pleasure, we do, so there's 100 hours of resources on video that have been created for this course that are all online, but they're not all required. And when people are working online, even though they're online, twice a week they're coming together and posting reports for each other to read about the same exercise. So, for example, we don't give massage where somebody lies there on a massage table. I used to do that, but I don't think people learn when they're still. So when we give touch, if we touch, the person on the table has to be moving and asking for the touch and breathing and making sounds. We call it erotic massage dancing. And so then if there's arousal, the movement integrates into the body. So really all of this is about integrating our sexuality into our bodies and our lives. But some of it's solo, some of it's partnered, some of it's social. But there's detailed descriptions at eroticmassage.com of what's in every class.
I think I would like to add that one part of it is, of course, technique. So in a way, my picture is that sexological bodyworkers are experts in touching genitals, assholes, because there's no other profession doing that. And there are so many topics we're covering, like if you have surgery, birth, and all these things, and these people don't really have a place to go where they can reconnect with their body, or if there's trauma in the body and all these topics. So it needs that technique, and that's important to learn that. But I think the main struggle, where I think the biggest learning is really creating a learning space. So what Joseph said, it's not I'm doing the massage, and many people doing the profession, they would like just to give a massage. It's much easier just to massage. And a lot of people coming, they like being massaged. But going in that space where you as a client empower yourself and really focus on where do I want to be touched, how do I want to be touched, and finding a language. For example, tomorrow we have on the topic is genital exploration. But it's not that somebody's just doing that to you, but the receivers will tell them, I would like to be touched there, like this, a little bit more pressure. And this communication is often really difficult to achieve because there's a lot of shame around talking about that. And learning that structure or opening that space, I think that's a big part in our training.
In fact, how many have heard of genital or of vaginal mapping? How many in the room? Vaginal mapping? A few. So this is something we developed within sexological bodywork. There can be anal mapping, but it is not a massage. So a partner, we teach partners to do this, but sexological bodyworkers can go inside with a glove into the vagina and touch a place on the wall of the vagina. And the idea here is with the guidance of the person whose vagina it is. And the idea is to hold that point So the awareness of the person and your finger, all of your attention is right there. And it's just holding that point. In a session, you might hold 5 points within the vagina. And it's paying attention to places where you never place attention before. And you give guidance on different places, so it's bringing awareness inside the anal area also. Just holding points so that there's an awareness. And so this is part of integrating. All of a sudden we have a sense of the inside of the vagina or the inside of the anus. And sometimes this is hooked up with trauma. So a person may go, oh, I start to feel certain things. There might be emotional release. More often, there's an awareness of sensation. Wow, I feel great power, I feel something. And then the person who has the vagina says, maybe, and we might do some breathing, maybe a little more pressure. We hold. Now I'd like to move somewhere else. And so the mapping is that you start to feel the inside of your vagina, but also you learn how important a point that's never touched. Even in intercourse, it's not focused on this point. And yet now you can focus on this point and come back there again and again. And I actually think every person with a vagina should have vaginal mapping once a week. Oh, I'm going for my vaginal mapping, you know, or your anal mapping. You know, so this is just quite an amazing experience for giving and receiving. And it's a meditation. It's because you're there in just this. It's, I guess some people who fist in the anus is really a meditation, but this is just bringing an awareness where there's usually not awareness. So I now have more of my body I'm aware of, I've reclaimed. So the training is about practices, and then we teach with practices. So it's about touch practices, solo practices, but then we teach people to practice. That's how people learn sex, practice. Anyone else? What's the question that you don't want to ask? Oh, I shouldn't ask. I'm ashamed to ask that. You know, this might be enough, though. There's, okay.
How do you deal with, with your arousal during a session, or is it never happening again because you're always on a professional level? How is it?
That wouldn't be very professional.
Oh yeah.
He's kidding.
No, I'm serious. Because the picture is that we go into resonance with that person, and if there is arousal energy, and there can any other energy, anger, sadness, frustration, and arousal is just an energy. And you will feel that energy, it will resonate in your body, but you learn you don't have to act on it. Yeah, you perceive it, but you don't have to act on it. And I think that is probably one of the big learnings in this training. Often we learn that when we aroused, we have to act that out in a way. And not acting on that, just feeling it and experience, I'm aroused. And I don't have to do anything with it. So if I wouldn't be aroused we have actually a great word in Sexological Bodywork, and that's professional intimacy or closeness, professionelle Nähe, versus professionality Stunts, so professional distance. And most of the profession work with professional distance. And our picture is we work with professional intimacy. So there are very clear boundaries, but you really are in connection with that person.
So we're not teaching lovemaking with our bodies. If somebody wants to come with a partner, we work with them, but we're not teaching with our bodies. In fact, the only reason this became a profession in California is that the sexological body worker wears clothes. We're not a surrogate or a playmate. And that's a very valid profession. I wish there were more professions in California that had that, but so this is as far as California was ready to go.
Sorry, I missed something.
I could answer also, if I may, to this. Because what Didi was saying, this gives you such a freedom in everyday life when you learn to work with your arousal and or erection with men. Because often it's you kind of forbid it. You say, oh, there's a nice woman, but look at her because I have a wife at home, you know, or it's you're tense. But now you go, oh, nice woman, wow, you feel the arousal, and that's it. You know, you don't like cut it off. You don't, as I say, you don't have to act on it. You don't have to go, oh, you know, like, or
let's take a deep breath.
Okay, I have the feeling that's enough for today, enough input, enough things you can work with. If you still have questions, you can approach us afterwards. There's one last thing that I'd like to say is a thank you to the people behind the scene that made this evening also possible, and that came up with wonderful questions also, and that initiated all this. Yeah, maybe we can do this.
And a big thank you to Robin, because she wasn't really prepared to be here and she was quite nervous, and I think you did a wonderful job.
I feel I was very authentic with my jogging pants. Like, okay, that's Berlin style, I guess.